Welcome back to the Deep Dive. I am your host, and today we are getting into a concept that is, honestly, pretty uncomfortable.
I am your resident expert,
Yeah.
and yeah, uncomfortable is definitely the right word for it.
And I don't mean uncomfortable like having a pebble in your shoe. I mean a deeply existential, who am I really kind of uncomfortable.
Right.
We are digging into a source from LegalsGram. It deals at that exact moment when things go horribly wrong, and you have that sudden, sinking realization that you have absolutely no one to blame but yourself.
It is a really harsh realization.
Yeah.
Today, we are looking at a specific definition card for a legal maxim. It basically serves as the ultimate shield for anyone who provides a risky service.
Oh, yeah.
From skydiving instructors to surgeons, this is the exact text that keeps them out of jail.
Right, and usually on this deep dive, we are looking at long articles or books, but today our source material is visually very distinct.
Extremely distinct.
It is a single high-contrast graphic from LabelsGram, stark black text, bright white background, and right in the corner there is a very serious silhouette of Lady Justice.
She is holding the scales, she has the sword, and frankly, she looks like she is absolutely not in the mood for any of your excuses.
She really does. It definitely sets a tone right away.
It does. It is authoritative. It feels less like a friendly suggestion and way more like a command handed down from history.
And the text on this card centers on a Latin phrase that I'm sure defense lawyers just love to whisper in courtrooms. Volenti non fit injuria.
Volenti non fit injuria. It is a doctrine that goes all the way back to Roman law. But even today, it is effectively the engine of our modern risk-taking society.
So the mission for this deep dive is to figure out if that engine is actually fair.
A big question.
We are going to take this definition apart. We really need to understand the relationship between willingness and injury. Because on the surface, at least, this doctrine says that if you sign up for the risk, you completely lose the right to complain about the pain later.
That is the core of it, yes.
But I have to be honest here. When I first read the direct translation on the card, I thought it was complete nonsense.
Nonsense. That is a strong way to start.
Well, look at the direct translation provided by the source. It literally says, meaning to a willing person, no injury is done.
Right.
I read that, and my first thought was, okay, LegalsGram is gaslighting me.
How so?
Because if I willingly step into a boxing ring, right, and I get my nose completely smashed across my face, I am definitely injured.
Oh, without a doubt.
I am bleeding, my nose is broken. That is an injury. So how can the law look at a visibly broken nose and just say, nope, no injury is done?
I get that. That is the paradox that trips literally everyone up when they first read this.
Yeah.
You are looking at the word injury as a purely biological fact.
Well, yeah, blood and bruising.
Exactly. You are seeing the physical damage. But the law, and specifically this Latin maxim, isn't looking at your biology at all. It is looking at your rights.
So it is just a semantic trick.
It is not a trick. It is a fundamental structural distinction. In this specific legal context, the Latin word injuria doesn't actually mean hurt. It means wrong.
Oh, like a moral wrong.
Like an injustice, a violation of your legal rights. So when the card translates it as no injury is done, what it is really saying is no injustice is done.
Okay, let me try to really wrap my head around that. My nose is physically broken, but because I agreed to the boxing match, my legal rights remain completely intact.
Precisely. The best way to think about it is to imagine your body as a house.
Okay, my body is a house.
You have the fundamental right to keep people out of your house. If someone kicks down your front door, that is a violation. That is a legal injury.
Right, that is trespassing or breaking and entering.
Exactly. But if you invite someone in and you say, hey, let's wrestle in the living room.
Sounds like a terrible idea, but okay.
It is a terrible idea. And they accidentally break a lamp while you are wrestling. Well, you invited them. You voluntarily waived the right to keep them out. You can't suddenly call the police for trespassing when you were the one who sent the invitation.
So Volenti is basically the invitation to break stuff doctrine.
In a weird way, yes. It is the legal doctrine that says you are allowed to waive your fundamental right to safety.
Wow.
And that is actually a massive deal. Because generally speaking, the entire legal system is designed to protect you from harm. This is the one specific area where the law just steps back, puts its hands up, and says, you are an adult. You can choose to put yourself in danger if you really want to.
But there has to be a limit to that, right? I mean, I can't just sign a napkin that says, do whatever you want to me and give someone total immunity.
You are right. There are strict limits. And
Yeah.
that is exactly where this LegalsGram card gets really interesting.
Because it doesn't stop at the definition.
Right. It goes further and actually lists the specific conditions required for this defense to work. And this is where the whole fairness aspect gets very sticky.
Yeah, I am looking at the text right below the definition. It says, if someone knowingly and voluntarily agrees to take a risk.
There they are.
Those are the two big gatekeepers.
Oh.
Knowingly and voluntarily.
I like to call them the twin pillars of consent. If you manage to knock either one of those pillars down, the whole Volenti defense collapses completely, and you can sue them for everything they have.
Let's stress test the first pillar then. Knowingly. Because I feel like knowing something is a pretty wide spectrum.
It definitely is.
I mean, let's say I sign up for one of those crazy mud runs, the obstacle courses with the barbed wire and the electric shocks.
Oh, the ones people pay perfectly good money to actively suffer through.
Exactly those. If I sign up for that, I know it is going to be hard. I know I might scrape my knee or twist an ankle.
Sure.
But do I know that the mud pit is completely full of flesh-eating bacteria? Or do I know that the electric shock wire is calibrated wrong and might actually stop my heart?
That is the perfect question to ask here. The source text just says knowingly. But in the legal world, we spend a lot of time debating the difference between actual knowledge and constructive knowledge.
Constructive knowledge sounds suspiciously like a trap.
It absolutely can be.
Yeah.
Look at it this way. Actual knowledge is me looking you in the eye and saying, I told you this wooden bridge is rotten. Do not cross it.
Okay, very clear.
Constructive knowledge is, I put up a giant neon sign that says the bridge is rotten, but you were staring down at your phone and you just didn't bother to read it.
Oh, wow.
And the kicker is, the law very often treats those two things as exactly the same.
So if I didn't actually read the giant waiver at the mud run, but the waiver technically mentioned the risk of flesh-eating bacteria, I am just cooked.
You are very likely cooked, yes.
Yeah.
Because you had the opportunity to know. The information was right there in front of you, and you simply chose not to take it in. In many jurisdictions, that counts as knowingly.
Yeah, it is.
The law essentially assumes that a competent adult actually reads the contracts they sign.
Which is frankly hilarious. Nobody reads the contract. Literally nobody. We all just scroll as fast as we can and click, I agree, because we want to use the app or we want to run the race.
It's true.
So isn't knowingly kind of just a massive legal fiction?
It is, but it is a necessary fiction. Think about it. If the legal system allowed, hey, I didn't read it, to be a valid, bulletproof excuse, then literally no contract would ever be binding again.
Because everyone would just instantly claim ignorance the second things went wrong.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So Volenti deliberately puts the burden completely on you. It is your job to educate yourself about the dangers before you say yes.
That feels incredibly heavy for the average person. It is basically saying, if you are too lazy to read the fine print, you are enthusiastically volunteering for whatever horrors are hidden in there.
It is heavy. I won't deny that.
Yeah.
But you have to look at the alternative. If we didn't have this doctrine, you couldn't have the mud run at all.
Why not?
Because the organizers would never, ever take on the financial risk of being sued by thousands of people for every little scrape and bruise. Society essentially trades a certain amount of your safety for your absolute freedom to do stupid fun things.
Okay, I see that. So knowingly is all about the information that is made available to you, even if you deliberately ignore it. What about the second pillar on the legal's Graham card? Voluntarily.
This is the freedom part of the equation.
Yeah.
You can have all the knowledge in the entire world. You can know exactly how rotten the bridge is. You can clearly see the sharks circling in the water.
Right.
But if you aren't choosing to take that risk freely, then Volenti simply does not apply.
But what actually accounts as free? Let's say I desperately need a job, and the absolute only way to get to that job is to cross that rotten bridge every single day.
Okay.
Am I really doing that voluntarily, or am I just doing it because I need to buy groceries and eat?
Now you are really getting into the deep, messy philosophy of the law. Historically speaking, courts have been incredibly strict about this. Meaning economic pressure isn't usually enough to negate voluntariness. Unless someone literally has a loaded gun to your head, or they're physically dragging you across the bridge, the law tends to shrug and say, well, you had a choice.
You're kidding.
I'm not. The court's view is often that you could have simply chosen not to take the job.
That sounds incredibly cold. Like, oh, you could have just chosen to starve. Thanks a lot, Lady Justice.
It is cold. It really is. But the source material we are looking at, this very stark black and white card, it reflects a legal system that values personal autonomy above almost everything else.
It assumes you are totally in control.
Exactly. It assumes you are the captain of your own ship. If you actively decide to steer your ship directly into a massive storm just to get a paycheck, the law says that was your command decision to make.
Okay, let's play this out with another scenario. I am back at the mud run. I signed the waiver, so we have established I knowingly accepted the risk.
Good.
I drove there myself. Nobody forced me. So I am doing it voluntarily.
Good.
I am standing at the very top of a giant, terrifying slide. I look down, I get major cold feet, and I say, nope, absolutely not. Too high. I am out.
Okay, you are withdrawing consent.
Right. But the instructor standing behind me just gives me a massive shove down the slide anyway.
Then the entire doctrine fails right there.
Even though I signed the ironclad waiver an hour ago?
Yes, because in that specific critical moment, your action was no longer voluntary. You clearly revoked your consent, and they physically overrode it.
Oh, that is fascinating.
The waiver only protects them from the consequences of your free choice. It does not protect them from committing an intentional battery against you.
Okay, I have to say, that actually makes me feel a little bit better. There is a hard line they can't cross.
There's a line. And that perfectly leads us to what I think is the most critical phrase on this entire Legal's Graham card. It is right near the bottom.
Ready, look.
It says the person cannot later complain about injury arising from that risk.
Arising from that risk. I actually underlined that phrase on my copy too. It is very singular. It is very specific.
It is the ultimate guardrail. It legally limits the scope of what you actually agreed to. When you say yes to a dangerous activity, you aren't just writing the organizers a blank check for total chaos.
Right. I'm not saying kill me however you want.
Exactly. You are only agreeing to the inherent risks of that specific activity.
Okay, let's test that. I am a huge hockey fan. I buy an expensive ticket, and I sit right down by the glass. I know that pucks occasionally fly into the stands. It literally says it in bold on the back of the ticket.
Correct. Flying pucks are a deeply inherent risk of watching live hockey. If you get hit by one, Volenti non-fit injuria. You knew, you sat there voluntarily, so legally speaking, no injury is done.
Fair enough. But what if, right in the middle of the intermission, the team mascot comes out with one of those high-powered T-shirt cannons?
Okay, I see where this is going.
And instead of aiming up into the cheap seats, he points it point blank at my face and fires a tightly wrapped T-shirt directly into my eye.
Did you consent to that specific risk?
Well, I consented to watching a hockey game. Is getting shot in the face by a mascot T-shirt cannon considered hockey?
Most courts would definitively say no. Being assaulted by a mascot's projectile is not an inherent part of the sport of hockey.
Right, it's totally separate.
It is an extraneous risk. It is gross negligence on the part of the arena or the team. So in that specific case, the Volenti doctrine would likely not protect them at all. You could absolutely sue.
Because the injury didn't arise from that risk, the hockey risk, it arose from a totally different, ridiculous risk that I never signed up for.
Exactly. And honestly, this is exactly where the multi-million-dollar battles happen in court every day. The defense lawyers will stand up and argue, oh, mascot antics are a well-known part of the stadium entertainment experience.
And my lawyer will argue, I bought a ticket for a winter sport, not for a point-blank projectile assault.
Precisely. The argument is entirely about the boundaries of the word that.
You know, it is funny, but that is actually really reassuring to hear. It means that just because I signed a scary waiver, the company doesn't suddenly get a free pass to be completely negligent. They can't just stop maintaining their equipment.
Right. If you go bungee jumping, you are accepting the inherent risk that the cord might whip you, or that the sudden pressure might pop some blood vessels in your eyes.
The normal bungee stuff.
Yes. You do not accept the risk that the operator bought the bungee cord at a garage sale in 1990, and it just snaps in half the second you jump.
So one is the thrill of the activity, and the other is just pure incompetence.
Perfectly stated. Volenti covers the thrill. It very, very rarely covers the incompetence.
I want to shift gears slightly and look at the phrase, cannot later complain on the card.
It is a really harsh phrasing, isn't it?
It is, and it implies a very specific timeline. It acts basically as an anti-regret mechanism for the legal system, because let's be honest, nobody complains before they get hurt.
You never.
We absolutely love the risk when it is giving us a massive adrenaline rush. We only decide we hate the risk after it puts us in a full-body cast.
That is just human nature, isn't it?
Right.
We desperately want the upside of the gamble, but we refuse to accept the downside. We want to drive way over the speed limit, but we complain when we get the ticket. We want to ski the double black diamond trail, but we want someone to blame when we tear our ACL.
And the law is standing there saying, nope, pick one.
The law is saying you cannot be a fair weather risk taker. If you buy the ticket, you take the ride. The word later is crucial here because it permanently locks you into whatever your state of mind was at the very start of the activity.
It is almost like a legal time machine. The judge basically looks back at the you from 2 hours ago, the one who was super excited and confidently signed the paper, and the judge says that you is the one officially in charge. The current you, who is sitting here in a wheelchair in pain, simply doesn't get a vote anymore.
That is a brilliant way to conceptualize it.
Ah,
The past you legally bound the future you,
hmm.
and future you just has to quietly deal with the consequences.
Which brings us right back to the central image on the legal's gram card, Lady Justice.
Mm.
She's usually blindfolded, representing impartiality. But in this specific silhouette, she feels very, I don't know, watchful.
She does.
We have talked a lot about the internal logic of this being fair, but does it actually feel fair to you? Out in the messy, real world.
Well, it heavily depends on which side of the economic equation you are standing on. If you are a small business owner, this doctrine is practically the only thing keeping your doors open.
Sure, because of insurance.
Exactly. If you run a local rock climbing gym and you are held fully liable every single time a customer scraped a knee on a plastic rock, you would be bankrupt and closed in a week. So it is fair in the pragmatic sense that it allows these fun, dangerous activities to even exist in society.
But what about from the consumer side?
From the consumer side, it assumes a level of deep technical competence that maybe doesn't always exist in reality. We briefly mentioned software agreements earlier. Think about beta testing a new app.
Oh, yeah, the classic download the beta version button.
When you casually click that, you are legally accepting the risk that it might completely crash your computer or permanently delete all your personal data. You are Volenti. But do most everyday people really understand the underlying code they're agreeing to run?
Definitely not. They just really want the cool new features.
Exactly. So we are constantly volunteering for massive technical risk that we don't even slightly understand purely because we're optimistic that things will be fine.
And that is where the fairness argument really starts to wobble.
It does. You have to remember, this doctrine was created in an era of horses and wooden carts. If you decided to get on a wild horse, you visibly knew it could kick you. The risk was physical and obvious. Today, the risks we take are increasingly invisible.
Like what?
Like hidden algorithms, long-term chemical side effects, wildly complex financial instruments.
So if I buy some volatile new cryptocurrency and it instantly crashes to absolute zero, I can't sue the market. Volenti non-fit injuria.
Spot on. You willingly walked into the digital casino. You cannot later complain that the house won.
But wait, what if the crypto exchange itself was secretly rigged the whole time?
Then it is not that risk.
Uh,
That is intentional fraud. See how it always comes back to the specific narrow scope of the original agreement.
It really does. It is this constant, intense tug of war between I agreed to gamble my money and I didn't agree to be actively cheated out of it.
And that is exactly why this deceptively simple card from LegalsGram is so profound. It's not just some dusty rule for contract lawyers.
Yeah.
It is the fundamental rule for how we interact with the entire modern world.
Yeah.
Every single time you step out of your front door, you are actively navigating this legal boundary.
It makes me think about medical procedures. Surgery has got to be the ultimate Volenti moment.
Oh, absolutely. Think about the reality of it. A surgeon literally cuts your body open with a sharp knife while you are unconscious. If a random person did that to you on the sidewalk, they would get 20 years in federal prison for aggravated assault.
Right.
But in this sterile hospital room, it is a highly respected service that you pay thousands of dollars for. The only actual difference between the crime and the cure is Volenti. You explicitly consented to the severe injury of the scalpel incision in order to get the medical benefit of the cure.
Wow, that really puts it in stark perspective. Without this specific doctrine, doctors literally couldn't touch us without risking prison time.
We would be right back to using leeches and hoping for the best.
So, despite how incredibly cold and harsh this legal's grand card looks at first glance, and despite how deeply annoying it is to hear someone tell you it's your own fault, we actually desperately need this concept. We need the legal ability to raise our hands and say, I will take the risk.
We truly do. True personal autonomy absolutely has to include the right to make terrible decisions, or at the very least, highly dangerous ones. If the government just wrapped us all in giant layers of bubble wrap and said, you legally cannot do anything where you might possibly get a bruise, we wouldn't actually be free.
What would we be?
We would be pets.
We would be pets. Man, that is a haunting thought. I would definitely rather be a slightly injured, free human being than a perfectly safe pet.
I think the vast majority of us would. And ultimately, that is the core freedom that Volenti preserves for us.
So let's briefly recap the flow of the logic here, because we have covered a massive amount of ground based on just these few lines of text from the source.
It is a dense card.
First, the definition. It is not about physical biological injury. It is entirely about legal injustice. You simply cannot be legally wronged if you enthusiastically said yes.
Perfect.
Second, the strict conditions. You absolutely have to know the risk, or at least have had the clear chance to know it, and you have to volunteer for it without any physical force or extreme coercion.
The twin pillars.
Third, the specific scope. You are only agreeing to the normal inherent risks of the thing. You are not agreeing to gross negligence or absolute madness. So no t-shirt cannons point blank to the face at a hockey game.
Exactly.
And fourth, the final consequence. You cannot complain later. You fully own the outcome, whatever it is.
That is a rock-solid summary. It really functions as an unbreakable logic chain. If every link in the chain holds firm, you are entirely on your own. But if the chain breaks anywhere, if you truly didn't know, or you were forced, or it was an extraneous risk you didn't agree to, then Lady Justice actually steps back in to help you.
It really emphasizes just how profoundly important that specific moment of agreement is. We treat it so casually in everyday life. We quickly scribble a terrible signature on a clipboard. We rapidly click a tiny box on a screen. But legally speaking, that is a sacred, binding moment.
It really is.
That is the exact moment you cross the invisible border from being a heavily protected citizen to being an adventurer completely out on your own.
It is a major transition. Yeah. And maybe the biggest takeaway from all of this is that we should probably respect that invisible border a little bit more than we currently do. We should actually pause and think before we cross it.
You mean we should actually read the waiver?
Look, I know it's incredibly boring. I know the legal font is purposely small. But yes, read the waiver. Or at the very least, stop for 5 seconds and ask yourself, what is the absolute worst thing that can realistically happen to me here? And am I genuinely okay with owning the consequences of that?
Because if the honest answer is no, you definitely shouldn't be signing that paper.
Exactly. Do not rely on the optimistic hope that it just won't happen to me. The law explicitly assumes that the second you signed, you were completely ready for it to happen to you.
This has been a truly fascinating look at such a small single piece of source material. I don't think I will ever look at a terms and conditions checkbox the exact same way again.
Good.
I mean, I will still probably just click it to get to the app, but I will definitely feel a lot more existential dread while I do it.
Hey, that is the goal. Informed dread is always legally better than completely ignorant bliss.
Informed dread. I really like that. I want to leave you, the listener, with a final thought to chew on today. Something that pushes just a bit past what was printed on the LegalsGram card. We talked quite a bit about knowingly. The source absolutely demands that we know the risk. But in a world that is getting exponentially more complex by the second, I am talking about AI systems, bioengineering, incredibly dense global financial questions. Can we ever truly know the actual risks we are taking anymore?
It is a huge problem.
Or are we rapidly entering an era where Volenti is just becoming a comforting myth simply because the modern risks are just way too complicated for a normal human brain to ever fully understand and consent to?
Honestly, that is the exact question that is going to define the entire next century of injury law.
At what specific point does willing just become uninformed optimism? Think deeply about that the next time you casually agree to a massive software update.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive. Stay safe out there. Actually read the fine print for once, and we will see you next time.